Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. I'm Annette Richmond. This is the Smarter Career and Business Moves LinkedIn live show and podcast. And I am so excited to have my guest here today. And I hope I'm saying your name right, Sonal, right? Correct? Yes?
Sonal.
Sonal. Okay, well, thank you. And I met you, I think, originally on Clubhouse. And then I met you through my friend Tina, more connected more recently. And I am so excited to have you on my show. So thank you for saying yes. And for anyone who does not know you, please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Delighted to be here, Annette. Thank you so much for having me. So, my name is Sonal Bahl. I am originally from India, born and bred, and moved to South America around like in my mid 20s. Lived in Uruguay and Chile. I was working in consulting. And in India, I was at different human resources roles, HR roles, the biggest of which was GE Capital. Back in the day when GE Capital, like it meant something, like it was on Fortune, Forbes, most respected company, most admired company. Do you remember those? Not
Oh, yeah,
anymore.
I remember.
And then came to Europe to study. I came here to do an MBA and somehow just stayed. And I worked in three different companies, been through layoffs, been through lots of ups and downs. And for the last few years, I'm self employed. And I decided it wasn't a conscious decision, but somehow I kind of fell into it. And before I knew it, I was a career coach. That was really never the intention. But it started with a fluky like YouTube channel, thinking, no, let me see if I can help people because I've done all these interesting things, and I think people aren't aware
Hmm.
of things they don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
And sharing something like on a video on LinkedIn, and one fine day someone reached out saying, hey, can you help me? And then I reached out to my coach because I was going through coaching because I'd been through ups and downs, and I was going through a massive confidence, like a dip in confidence, like we all do sometimes.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't know, how much should I charge? And I was just some number just blurted out. And before I knew it, I was like, okay, let me incorporate it. This is a business. So the rest is history.
Yeah, thank you for saying that right up front. There's so many people that are like, "Oh, imposter syndrome." And you know what? Everybody, I work with a lot with successful executives, and they all feel it. They all feel it. And I am so excited to that you chose this topic for today. Partly selfishly because I know I'm going to learn some things, and I'm excited for that. But the whole idea of networking, I think it kind of gets a bad rap. And I think that is because people think of it as very transactional. I connect with you, you give me something, I give you something, which, as I know, you don't believe that. I don't believe that either. And I have friends who really should be, and they're like, oh, I hate it. And it's because they don't, because of the way they think about it. So before we start talking about these big moves, which I'm excited about, um, can you just share a little bit about kind of how you define networking?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's I literally have a point here. I made notes for you, Annette. I'm bringing
Oh,
my A game.
okay.
I'm bringing my A game. My first point here literally says definition of networking, old versus new. That's literally how I wanted to start.
Hmm.
And just to add to what you said earlier, I mean, I work with senior level, C-suite clients who are going through a career transition, and the idea of networking gives them the heebie-jeebies. So honestly, this definition that I'm about to share. It's got to go. It's got to go. It's got to go. The definition I got when I Googled it this morning was in the Oxford English Dictionary, and it says, and I quote, the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. Now, I think
Okay.
that this is the way things were done for a very long time, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s for the most part. 2020, especially with COVID being the accelerator for people wanting something else, it has changed. And I always looked at networking differently. I never liked the word networking. And I got to tell you, I started my career in software recruitment. And for me, the word networking didn't mean what it means in the social context. For me, it was about Cisco routers. So, networking as a term for me belongs there. not between humans, because we're not, nodes, we are not programs, we're not physical things connecting computers. So the best definition that I have seen, and I love this and I vouch for this, we were chatting backstage about, no, I think I mentioned it now, GE Capital. So it's
Mhm.
interesting. So Jack Welch, he passed a couple of years ago. So his latest wife, right? So Susie Welch. I love this definition. She wrote an article on CNBC back in 2019, and she says, "Don't bother networking. Don't bother. Make friends instead, because human beings help friends. They don't help contacts."
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think we also need to we need to revisit the definition of friends. We have friends which are our close circle of friends. That doesn't mean every single person belongs in that close circle, right? You have acquaintances that you know, but then you've got people in the middle. And what's happened is very interesting because of COVID, and I'm going to talk about that. I'll talk about that in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So, yes, so this is how I would define networking: make friends and stay in touch. That's it.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, I love that, and I think of it too as, if I'm looking for a new vet, where do I go? I go to my friends and ask, and that's, and so that's like that's what I think of, which is kind of that definition of just friends, and if you can exchange things, um and sometimes it's the last time like we refinanced our home. We did it through someone that I've known for 10 years, and it just happened like, oh, I know so and so, and it's just those, but I love that too, and I think that about LinkedIn. People think of it as, oh, I'm, making my connections, and you're really meeting other humans there. You're not, you
Yeah,
know
even like I my sink is broken and I need a plumber. I'm going to speak to a friend of mine. I'm not networking with her. I'm asking her for help and she's helping
Mhm.
me out, right? So
Yep.
the same thing works in the professional sphere. Exactly what you said. Um, LinkedIn gets a bad rap simply for the purpose of the way some marketeers approach it. And they sell that, and they actually make a lot of money selling that. So people think, oh, that must be true then. And it isn't. Not for those who are interested in the long game, anyway.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, I know, and it's interesting because um I can tell, and I'm sure you can tell as well. You can tell when someone has just come out as a bunch of people are taking a course or taking a class, because you get a bunch of connection requests and they all have the same line. It's like, oh, honored to connect with you, or oh, we have mutual connections or something, and and people that you don't know, and
Yeah.
then occasionally you get someone, you connect with them, and immediately
And yeah, and
ditch.
the reason immediately you connect with them is because they let their guard down. We've got to let our guard down because of these, stale lines we hear over and over. Honored to connect with you. So I was talking about friends, connections, and I was talking about acquaintances. You know, it's very interesting with LinkedIn. It's somewhere in the middle because I met so many people through LinkedIn. They've come on my show, they've come on my podcast. I don't think of them as acquaintances because, we will talk on the show or off the show. We'll talk about things that are going on in their lives, a
Mhm.
child who's very ill or they're going through a divorce. You don't share that with an acquaintance. So, I mean, I tell my husband all the time. So, I have this friend in Chicago. He's like, "How many friends? Have you even met her?" I'm like, "No, I haven't physically. I haven't physically met her. But where does it say that I have to have physically met her to have, and these are people who refer, like with you, I'm sure, refer clients all the time. Like, I know someone. You're looking for something in this particular area. I think you should speak with her. And Jay says, references, referrals, but it isn't coming from that intention. It's about just making friends and staying in touch. It's not because I need something from you, because when that other person can smell that from a mile away, you've lost before you've even entered the room.
Oh, it's so true. And I mentioned Tina early on. We sort of connected more with her, or through her. And she's someone I've never met her. I likely never will. She's in Belgium. I'm in the New
Never
York
say
metro
never.
area.
I'm also
Well,
in Belgium, and I have so many LinkedIn friends in the
yeah,
US, in New York City. Who knows, like you'll
oh,
go one day, you'll go to Europe. It's like, hey, I'm coming, I'm gonna
absolutely.
see you. You see
That
these LinkedIn reunions happening a lot. And
that is true. But the thing is that, like, we chat though every once in a while. We hop on a Zoom and we chit chat, and we're not talking about business. We're talking about our lives and
yeah,
what we're doing and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
So So I think we kind of talked about some of I was going to ask you like the big mistakes that people make. And I think, it's the connection request and immediately pitch them and, sell them your services, etc. But
And
I,
Annette, that happens so often. It's even happening with some like top voice type profiles, and they're like immediately connected. Hey, I've just written this book. Why don't I come on your podcast? I don't know you from Adam,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
maybe they're writing, or maybe their PR firm is writing. It's just, it's a bad move.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And there are people, there are
Immediately. It's different if you PR pitch and it is an email. That's different. But if the connection was with the intent of selling something, whether it's
people.
a book, which is even I'll send you a free copy. What you give before you get. I get requests like, I don't know if you get this. I got endorsements recently, and I said thank you for endorsing me. They're like, you're welcome. Now I would love it if you could reciprocate in kind. And I had
Yeah.
to give them a long message saying why that was not a classy move.
I know, well, but that's the whole old-fashioned bad networking idea. I do this for you, so you need to do that back for me, and it's just
Quid
so
pro
so,
quo. No,
so
no,
crazy. So
no.
so tell me about, we've kind of been, talking around some of the bad stuff and some of the good stuff, but let's get into some of those big networking moves. So I
Yeah.
know you have some things to share, so take
I
it
think,
away.
yeah, yeah. I think the first one is I mean, let's not make it hard. Let's not make it complicated, because when we
Mhm.
hear big, bold, we think it's scary and it's probably not for me, right? And
Okay,
particularly
yes.
the introverts in the room tend to withdraw. And something interesting happened during COVID. I became quite quiet. I became quite withdrawn. I started a podcast. I was listening more than I was speaking. So the classic definition, I don't like stereotypes, introvert, extrovert, who knows, ambivert, wherever you think you are in that spectrum. The first thing I want to share is every single time you meet a human being, even a dog or a cat, because they have owners, right? They have a family they belong to. Every single time is an opportunity. Now, if you go to work physically, whether it's in the car, on the bus, in the tram, in the cafeteria, so many opportunities. They're around us. You don't have to look for them. You're surrounded by people. And as social beings, we need people.
Mhm.
So opportunities are everywhere. And I'm going to give tips on how we go about it. But I'm just like, I want us to kind of remember this, because it's like a dentist office. And I'm going to talk about that hairdresser.
Oh,
What? So
yeah.
for people, yeah, but for people who are going to a physical space, it is so much easier. Now, for those who work from home, one thing that is in your favor, and you have it at the tip, is your phone. So social media is your savior. However, it's like, I think of it as a hop on, hop off. Those buses in London, and like they're like hop on and then hop off.
Mhm.
Social media should be
Mhm.
like a get on and get off type of thing, which means interact with each other, have fun with each other, and then get off of social media and get on Zoom together if you're in two different cities or two different countries, because the intimacy and the connection is different. And it's not like, oh, I need something, so let me have a Zoom with her. Sure, you can share your problems because you've already been interacting so much. And I consider these people like my friends. Like when I was ill and I was in hospital, there was, Kevin or G, they're sending me flowers. They knew more about what was happening in my world than my own school friends who live in a different city. So the point is, take those connections off of LinkedIn or whichever social media you have, and serendipity, which is like where, when, how, it will happen when your eyes are open. When your eyes are open, and you're willing to just look, and not maybe walk. For example, walk with your phone. I'm not being judgmental, because I'm on my phone, and I'm working on my phone. But it's amazing how many things you see when you are in public spaces. So that is the first thing. And I also want to share, just be you. No, nothing is wrong with you. No need to fix yourself. Okay, if you're like, I don't like this, I don't like, do what feels natural to you. Slightly uncomfortable is a good thing, because you're growing. But it's amazing. So for some people, rich white dudes, it's the golf links, and that's great. For somebody else, it could be the dog agrees with me. For somebody else, it could be like, I was at the hairdresser, and this lady was talking, and I was like, oh, interesting. And so what do you do? And I ended up like getting a client, and it was just, and this comes to another point. um when I say just be you, just tap into your strengths that you already have. You do not have to pretend or take it up a notch and then come home really tired because it completely took all the energy out of you.
Mhm.
I remember because my hairdresser is Turkish, and she doesn't speak a lot of English, so it's French, and I speak French with her. And every time she has someone and they're chatty next door, and I'm like, oh, what do you do, etc., etc. Like, oh, your husband's an Exxon Mobil. Oh, I see. So you're an expatriated wife. How are you doing? Oh, you're Belgian. You've never lived in Belgium. How is that going? And then like da da exchange numbers. Oh, you're looking for a house. And I want to help them. And that lady, my hairdresser, told me, you're really good at this. And my kids were with me, and they were so embarrassed. They were like, stop talking. Why can't you just be quiet? One is a teenager and one is a preteen. And he's like, oh my god, ma, like, you think you're like a social media influencer. I'm actually not at all. I just enjoy talking to random strangers. And that serendipity thing is like, oh, I know I met this person and she's looking for a house, she's looking for a job. I know on so and so at PNG. Random,
Mhm.
totally
Mhm.
random, comes from nowhere. And it came naturally to me. Somebody else didn't like it. A stranger, like my hairdresser, acknowledged it. So it's like, oh, I never realized it actually. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
I'm laughing hysterically because I am like that, and my husband gets embarrassed. I'm talking to people. I'm at Trader Joe's shopping, and I'm like, and I'm looking, and I'm like, and I'm talking to people. Oh, if I see something in somebody's cart, oh, I'm thinking of trying that. What's it like? And I enjoy that too. Although I would consider myself, like after so much time with people, I need to, back
Yeah,
off and have
sure,
some alone time. But
sure.
I am like that too. I love to chat with people. I think I got that from years of bartending where I just, I feel comfortable talking to anybody. And I think that was one of the best things from kind of having that job. But yeah, I think that's so true. It's just, without having that preconceived, any preconceptions when you meet people, just meet them.
Uh, very related to what I was going to say next. Preconceived. So, what is your enemy when it comes to? Firstly, we said we don't like the word networking. We got to change that. We talked about
Yes.
making friends and staying in touch. What is the enemy of this? The enemy of this is a confirmation mindset, and I'm going to explain. The best friend of this is a curiosity mindset. Simple. If you think you're not that curious anymore, just look around you with kids. But why? But why? They're annoying AF, but holy heck, they learn. They learn because they asked questions, and there is no such thing as a bad question. A curiosity mindset is like, okay, I met I'll talk about the confirmation, the bad one, right? So I meet Annette at an event for personal brand professionals. All right, and I'm there, I'm sipping my drink, and she's there, and I'm like, hi. So what do you do? So I am, let's say, currently between jobs. Like I want to be a personal brand strategist, so I'm learning from people around, but I've just been laid off, right? So I'm gonna say, oh, I'm currently between jobs. So Annette, and I'm not saying no, I'm just having fun role
No,
play.
no, of course.
And Annette is gonna be like, uh, not exactly client material. Let me just withdraw to the next person,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
slide
Always
them.
be looking, right? Yeah.
So a confirmation mindset is telling her that a person between jobs is not interesting and they have nothing to offer you. All right. Same event, same two people, different day scenario. We don't know each other. So, like Annette says, hey, Sonal, so what do you do? I'm currently between jobs right now. Oh, I see. So, what were you doing before? I used to be chief marketing officer at a branding agency. And I decided after 25 years, I think it's time for a break. So I'm going to go off on an adventure in Madagascar and set up a not for profit. And she's like, whoa, this woman's led a colorful life. I want to be in her energy. I want to learn from her. Now, if she hadn't asked, what were you doing before? This this conversation would have ended right there. So I can't tell you how many times when we have the confirmation mindset, we are inadvertently shooting ourselves in the foot because we make assumptions. Oh, this is a finance professional. He must be boring. This is a person between jobs. They have nothing to offer me. And, who knows? Maybe yes and maybe no. People say, dig your well before you are thirsty. I'm like, hello, I'm always thirsty. It's like Pepsi back in the 80s or something. It's like, you keep drinking, it never quenches your thirst. What if you're always thirsty? So it's not a one time thing, right? And you're not digging your well before you're thirsty. You're just digging your well because that is the only way to get to the water. There is no other way. And it's not about like, oh, let me see what I can do and then I'll ask for a favor. But when you already have that relationship and both sides are honest, it's like, Annette, actually, I'm struggling with something. I wonder if I can talk to you for 5 minutes. She'll be like, yes, how can I help you? You don't have to try that hard. Why? Because Annette, when Annette needed it, I listened. So it
Yeah.
comes from a very good old fashioned thing called reciprocity. You just don't be a dick. Sorry. Just be
No,
nice.
no, no. I am with you
Just be a nice
100%.
person. When you're a nice person and you listen, the other person's like, hey, Sonal, what can I do for you? And I'm like, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked. There's something on my mind, and I'm really excited to work at this company. And I don't know who can refer me, but I see that you told me your husband, oh, let me make a call, etc., etc. It doesn't feel, sleazy. And you didn't do this because you needed some. Sometimes we need something. That's okay. But it's a little foreplay sometimes. You just don't immediately go in for the, especially when there is no context, there's no
Hmm.
relationship.
Hmm. Yes, yes. I mean, it is much different. The people that I'm friendly with, that I'm happy to help them. They could ask me for whatever, and vice versa. But
Yeah.
not for people that you just meet, and it's just I just love this whole idea, and it's so refreshing for me to listen to you talk about this, and to share this. I'm so happy that you're sharing this with people who are watching this now and will be listening later and on the podcast, because it's just there's so many of these misconceptions. And I think if the whole a big thing of it is just looking at people as other humans, another human. And it's so true. Like, I work with a lot of people in financial services, executives. And one of the things I always ask people is, what's something that would surprise me about you? Because I'm curious. I'd like to know a little bit about them. And I've had people tell me, oh, I built my house with my own hands, or I used to play professional basketball, or things like this. And it's like, oh, how cool. And people are interesting. They're interesting. It's very unusual to ever meet someone, for me anyway, that
It
like
is. It
I
is.
wouldn't want to have, a 15-minute conversation with. So,
I'm laughing at Leonard. I'm laughing at Leonard's comment. But the whole thing about BU is so underrated. I can't tell you. And Sarah says the same thing. Like when I'm live on LinkedIn, I'm a little goofy and I like my large cup of tea, and my hair was not. And I remember my mom was watching once and she was like, you'd be better off putting it like this. And why don't you change your clothes? And I'm like, that's not who I am. Right. Or sometimes I'm snarky because there's a comment which I don't like. And if I see it repeatedly, I'll it is who I am. So, Sarah, not only are you enough just the way you are, actually, you're more than enough. And that is what is so wrong and so much in shortage in the world, because we have been conditioned for so many years that
yeah.
this is the way to be impressive. Yes, I train, I know, I teach, I help my clients. Yes, of course, you have to be impressive in an interview. Yes, of course, we want to get that job. Sometimes there's a power imbalance. I get that, but not at the cost of your peace of mind. And I put up this front because I shared that I like golf because it'll help from a networking point of view. Sooner or later that stuff catches up with us,
Mhm.
and it's not worth it. I want to give you a quick pro tip for anyone. I don't know if you have people in the audience who are in the job market. This was my first sorry, let me wait for you to answer that question.
No, I'm
Not
sorry.
really. Do you have people in the audience who are sometimes in the job market?
Yes, yes,
Oh, okay.
absolutely, absolutely. And
Okay.
and then I want to also just say hello to some of our friends in the audience. So I just want to say hello to Paula Christensen, who's obviously a friend of yours. She's a good friend of mine as well. So
She's
she is
lovely.
she is such a lovely person. And you were commenting back to Sarah, who said, "What a lovely thought, just be you. There is nothing wrong with you." And that is so true. And I feel so often that, when I'm looking at LinkedIn or something like that, and Leonard, who I met recently, says the same thing: be yourself. And when I'm looking at LinkedIn, I take so many things that I read with a grain of salt, because even when people share the most, maybe a most intimate thing or personal thing about themselves, if I'm sharing, like, I'm not getting a divorce, but if I was and I started talking about it on LinkedIn, I'm only sharing it because I want people to know. So it is, I always try to bear that in mind, that people are sharing what they want.
I think that's a really great point. And I just want to stay here for a minute. Leonard, because there'll be trends and you'll be told you have to ride these trends, have a selfie. Paula mentioned yesterday was National Selfie Day. You'll almost never catch me doing that duck face thing. I will almost never talk about my family. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not for me. So we're talking about something else now, but it does affect how you show up in networking as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Paula gets our message. Yes, Paula, we love you.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
always such a treat. So you were about to go into a
Yeah.
thing for job seekers.
So, yeah, very quick thing. This was my first viral post that went out in August 2020. It had like 1.3 million views, and I couldn't, like, it was a full time job just replying to those comments. And it was a boring text post that I didn't think twice about. And LinkedIn featured it in its news. It was nuts. And the topic was hobbies on the resume, yes or no. So, and I wrote why. One of the reasons I like putting hobbies on the resume and not reading, swimming, listening to music, writing, movies. Hello, I've already forgotten about you. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep. Just like, okay, reading, I'm on my latest Jeffrey Archer, or golf. I have a 8 handicap, whatever, cooking, I'm currently known for the best brownies on the block. Something, or crochet, nutty stuff, but something you love. The reason is because recruiters are human beings, and it's about making a connection. And there were some hate comments, and they were pretty violent, and some of them said you're creating a bias. I'm like, no, there is no bias, whether it's golf or crochet. If it's free, if it's paid, it doesn't matter. Country club membership, the point is you're making a connection with the other person,
Mhm.
and they will want to call you, and they will want to, at the end, I can't tell you how many times my clients are like, oh, this guy wanted to talk about the rock festival in Belgium because he's a big fan, and I wrote that I play in this band, and they connected on it. And yes, there is bias, of course there is bias. There's positive bias and there's confirmation bias, which is good, and it serves you. And too bad for other candidates, but take advantage of things that make you interesting and different. And if you put them on the resume already, you have got ahead of the networking before it even you could even meet another human being, because now people will know you as the person who does that and other things like your day job. But I don't know, 90-95% of recruiters who saw that post said, oh yeah, this works. I have this example and that example.
Yeah, so I want to just pull this up because Jay says volunteering can be used, known as
Um,
professional experience, and I think that can be particularly helpful for people if they're changing careers.
so there was a survey conducted on LinkedIn, I think back in 2017, and they said that hiring managers, 41% of hiring managers consider volunteer experience at the same level as paid experience. And I think over 90% of professionals on LinkedIn have listed volunteer experience. So definitely do that. You don't know who you're going to meet. And through volunteer activity, through volunteer activity, got paid jobs when I couldn't find paid work in Uruguay and Chile. So, like we talked about in the beginning, every single opportunity that you are with a human being, if you open your eyes to a curiosity mindset versus a confirmation mindset, is an opportunity to make a friend. Not network, make a friend.
Exactly. So we are just about at the end, and I wanted to ask you, first of all, I wanted to ask you about the SuperCharge Fridays and where that came from, and if you can share a little bit about that, because I think it's such a valuable resource. And then if you have final thoughts, because we've talked about a lot, but if whatever you would like to share, as we
Yeah.
wind
Yeah.
down here, it goes so fast.
Yeah, Supercharge Fridays. I applied. This is back in 2019. I applied to be a beta tester for LinkedIn Live twice, and I was rejected. They were very selective about who they brought in. The third time I applied in Jan 2020, and I got accepted. So first of all, persistence never ever hurts you. And then when I got it on a Wednesday, and I immediately said, I want to do something. And I help people who have money. But what about people who don't have that much money? And this was my way of just sharing my knowledge and not keeping it to myself. And I've been going strong for 3.5 years. So Jan 2020, it's now June 2023. And this is, I could be having the crappiest week, but that is my happy hour. It's like, hey, what's happening? I'll bring in a guest. Paula was a guest. Or I'll be by myself. If I don't have time to prep anything, I'll be like, hey, what's happening, guys? Can I help? So ask me anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun. And I'm just who I am, and I'm honest. And some advice, it's not advice like do this, don't do this. It's perspectives. I want to
Mm-hmm.
share my perspectives because I've made so many mistakes. I love sharing those mistakes because if it helps someone to get to their destination faster, mission accomplished.
Yeah, yeah. Paula is such a wealth of and very generous with her knowledge. So she's been on my show with me a few times as well. So what sort of final thoughts do you have to kind of wrap this up before we say
Yeah.
goodbye?
Just remember that it is not as scary as it might look. For example, you're at an event and there's a speaker, and then you're like, I want to, that person really, something spoke to my soul, and I want to connect with them. I want to talk to them after the event. And you're like, but everyone's going to do that. There's going to be a long line. No, just do it. Actually, they want to hear from you. They want to hear, and not fangirling, but genuinely what you liked and what you took away. And they'll be, can I stay? Can I connect with you? They'll be like, yes. So don't make those assumptions from a confirmation mindset that if this person looks important, that means they are not accessible.
Yeah, yeah. Most people are just nice, right? I mean, most people are nice. They're
99.9% of people are nice. And the 0.1%, that is that word that was censored that Leonard knows, they don't speak for the rest of us. They don't, unfortunately, the world gives them a pretty huge microphone, but they don't represent the rest of us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this has gone by so fast. I could sit here and chat with you for hours, but obviously you don't have the time, and I have to get going myself. But I thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who has joined us, been here with us this whole time. People who will be watching on the replay and also listening on my podcast. So, have a great rest of your day, everyone, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Annette.